Welcome to the Verdict Sports Show. I'm your host, Jacob Verda, joined by my guy, G Sports. G, thanks for your time. How are you, man?
Doing good, man. How you making out?
I'm chilling. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We got Brian Kelly's stance on NIL. He's saying it's not a pivot. It's more of a call to action. He reflected on the call to action. The fans came together. Some people donated. Some people trying to get the funds acclimated for the transfer portal push. That seems like it's kind of on the way. The visits are already piling up. You got about 3, I think, this week. You could add a few more as things kind of shake up. Obviously, another addition to the departure portal for LSU with Kamorian Pimpton leaving, but I'm not going to say it's kind of surprising. I feel like, with Mason Taylor leaving and Trudez Green kind of entering that tight end one role, I think he's made himself pretty clear that he's going to be that big pass catcher. He's going to be the guy that they go towards in those tight end sets. With that being said, that other type of tight end you're going to need, I'm not going to say you have to have a blocking tight end. I'm sure the more the merrier in terms of receiving tight ends, but I think Kamorian Pimpton kind of saw that he might have a better chance at another school, especially with someone like Luke Haas, Arkansas tight end transfer. It seems like, I'm not saying he's a lock, but him having that early visit, seems like they're pushing, have that extra incentive behind it. What are you hearing from the transfer portal? What was your reaction to Kamorian Pimpton? And do you think more LSU players are going to be on their way out? Or is this transfer portal window kind of going to ease up a little bit?
I thought when Mason Taylor decided to declare for the draft, I was assuming that Pimpton was going to return because he knew that it was going to be him and Trey's room. That was going to be a nice 1-2 punch. And you know that that Brian Kelly loves to use 2 tight end sets. And so I thought that was a clear indication that he would return. Obviously, Pimpton was unhappy with his role this year. And I'm pretty sure they had some schools that was reaching out, trying to get his services, and probably was letting him know, like, look, we're going to make you tight end one. We're going to make you tight end one. I'm pretty sure NIL had something to do with it because he was a highly touted prospect coming out of high school. And so, when the tight end from Arkansas decided that he was coming on a visit this weekend, I thought that was the nail in the coffin that it made Pimpton say, let me get up out of here. They obviously trying to move into a different direction. And I think that's why you saw him getting the portal yesterday.
So with the Luke Haas situation, the Arkansas tight end, with his visit coming this weekend, do you think he's going to see other schools? Is this going to be kind of a fast moving commitment, or is this? I feel like, you only bring in one tight end. Like you said, you lose Mason Taylor, you lose Pimpton. Now you're in a situation where you're kind of pushing fast and in a hurry. I mean, you got 2 guys really that you can lean on. I mean, yeah, you got Gio Patterson as well, but you're going to have to try to find something. And I think, this might be their guy. I'm not sure, though. How are you feeling? What are you hearing? And do you think this could be a good fit?
I mean, Hask is supposed to take 2 other visits besides LSU. Now, it could work out to where he sees Pimpton getting a portal, and that might make him say, look, I'm coming to LSU because I know it's going to be me and Trey's Green, having the opportunity to be in those 2 tight end sets together. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually commits to LSU when he comes on his visit this weekend. So I think that Pimpton is a better talent than Hask. And so LSU fans need to understand that losing Pimpton, I'm not going to say is detrimental, but you lose something. Losing a big body that's 6'6", 6'6.5", that's athletic like that has that catch radius. I hate to see him leave, but it is what it is. I think Pimpton kind of was kind of over the whole LSU thing. If you watched him this season, he didn't really get a whole lot of time. And I thought in that last game as Oklahoma, you saw LSU trying to insert him when he had the long 40-yard catch on the railroad. I think that was them trying to show him that, look, we are valuing you and we're going to try to use you going forward. I would have liked to see him at least playing a bowl game to see how they was going to try to utilize him. But
yeah,
he's in the portal, man, and so good luck to him wherever he ends up.
I agree. Talking about the role and just how, I at least personally expected him to get incorporated a lot more. You've seen through spring they utilized him a lot. He had a nice spring game. Throughout the fall camp, they start rolling out those doubles. And I mean, hell, at times they had a triple tight end look. Gee, they had 3 tight ends you could throw out there on an SEC field. We got our guy Maurice in the chat kind of going on the same thing, saying he can't believe all the red zone struggles we had. We never utilized Pimpton and Green in a package. I mean, they tried, they added, the idea was there. I don't know if it was a lack of execution. I don't know if it was just too obvious. I don't know the situation, but yeah, going forward, losing that, not having that in your back pocket, in your arsenal, if you will, I think that's going to be a big, big, big blow. There is another visit, though, this weekend besides Luke, tight end from Arkansas. There's going to be Jakeem Jackson. And there's a little bit of a backstory here, obviously. Corey Raymond, and he got coached by him for a little bit. But the number 3 corner coming in, not necessarily being a replacement for someone like Cade Phillips, but we kind of talked about it when all the news kind of started breaking that you're losing this prospect. And, we do get Aiden, we do get DJ, and now you could potentially get someone like Jakeem. I'm not going to say, is it all worth losing a blue chip prospect? But in the end, you get a pretty experienced DB at an SEC level. It's got some playing time. I mean, NACO's is predicting from On3, NACO's is predicting that Jakeem is going to lean toward LSU. I know we still got some time left, but how are you feeling towards that one?
I like Jakeem Jackson. Very, very talented corner. I think he's 6'1", 6'2". And he played pretty well this season for Florida. Now, my only question is, why is he leaving Florida, especially with them trending in the right direction on how they ended the season? I would have to do my research and kind of find out what happened and why he wanted to depart from Gainesville. But if LSU gets him, he's definitely a talent. I would not be surprised if he challenges for that other cornerback role. And it could be possibly Jakeem Jackson and Ashton Stamps, or it could possibly be Jakeem Jackson and DJ Pickett. And if that happens, that's a lot of length at that corner position, just like Corey Raymond loves to have. You go back to his past history. So I really like Jakeem. And I know Corey Raymond has a lot of familiarity with Jakeem Jackson when he was at Florida, recruiting that area, and that's.
I think you're breaking
if
up.
he decides to commit this weekend.
Yeah, it would be big. And I think, LSU, they're not desperate. They're not dying. They're not, just fiending for a corner. But I think the more you get in that spot, the more you boost that defense, the more you give Corey Raymond and Blake Baker to work with, I think the more growth potential that this side of the ball has. And then, I mean, that's going to help support an ever-changing offense as the portal continues to widen. Another potential prospect here for LSU. Let's keep it defensive related. Let's move on to Mizzou. Mr. Williams was recruited by Peoples. The DC at the time, obviously, for Mizzou was Blake Baker. There's more connection. There's more chemistry here with a potential transfer prospect. I feel like, he would be a big get. How much are we leaning, though, toward him actually being able to kind of make this into fruition? There's just a connection here, but is there any real steam behind this? Is there any real juice, or is it just kind of a chemistry thing?
I know Blake Baker definitely loves him, and he's very familiar with him, and so that's the connection there. And I believe that if they can get the NIL portion right, he'll definitely commit to LSU. I'm hearing that he's probably like 1 or 2 on their board for his transfer portal guys, and I think you have to get him, especially with you losing Swinson. Right, you gotta have that other edge rusher that can come in and has experience and be able to get to the passer, and they're gonna need him to go along with those guys in the middle with Dominic McKinley, Ahmad Brew, and Jacoby Gillerin coming back. So, and if you can't get him, I think that'll be a big loss when you talk about transfer portal guys.
I agree, and not a lot of people are gonna know the name. Not a lot of people are gonna see many stats, many anything about him. He didn't get much playing time.
He was highly touted coming out of high school. I think he was like the number 2 edge rusher in his class.
Yeah, he was a big name, and he goes to Mizzou. Obviously, a lot of coaching staff changes, and they just don't really utilize him. They don't really put him in a position to succeed, if you will. And now I think this is the spot, or at least an opportunity for him to really hit his growth potential. And I mean, it's all interesting because these transfer portal situations, I mean, it could really go one of two ways here, but I'm going to be real. Through the last couple of years, LSU's been pretty good in the defensive transfer portal side, I feel like. And this is, as you were saying, a must. You're losing big pieces. You don't got much in the bag in terms of depth. Go ahead and add a nice piece of veteran leadership. There's another piece that they could add terms of veteran leadership. They got Brandon White, wide receiver from Kentucky, very speedy. Believe it's like a 4.3 40. I mean, I don't know the exact official times. We're gonna have to go out there and time them, but it's insane. It's needed. But there's all kind of names. I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers that you could pick from. There's all kind of skillful talents jumping in and out of that portal. What do you hear about Brandon White? Are there any other rumblings in terms of that wide receiver market, and just how's LSU going to try to scale up that pass catching room?
Brandon White, very, very solid receiver at Kentucky. Like you say, he's a speedster, can blow the top off of defense. I don't think he's a number one. I really don't. And so if he does decide to come to LSU, I think it'll be a solid addition to that receiver room. But they got to go out there and get a real wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 type of player. And there's no disrespect to Brandon White. I think he's a good player, but I don't think he's a game changer to where adding him to that room just puts you over the top. I'm still waiting for that receiver in the ACC that I was talking about last episode to get in the portal and come on down to Death Valley. I think that'll really, really help that room out a lot.
I'm excited. I'm waiting. Little G dropping dimes. Hitting him with the assist. Let's move on to a little interesting topic I had to hit you with early this morning. I know we talked about it a little bit before we got on the show, but I want to put this up for the viewers. This is, don't take it from us, but this is what is floating around on Twitter that the SEC is estimating the NFL collectives per organization. You got Texas at the top, of course. Who's surprised? 22 million. Ohio State following under at 20.2. But what a shocker, at least for me. LSU at number 3, $100,000 away from Ohio State. The Buckeyes, one of the biggest brands that are making waves in the NIL world. It's an interesting look. I'm not gonna buy it. I'm gonna let you talk about it, G. But I mean, what's going? If this was true, I just feel like we'd be in a little bit different situation, at least from that recruiting standpoint. I mean, what happened if this is the case?
I can assure you that this is absolutely false. That's absolutely false. If you think that LSU is third when it comes to NIL money, you're sadly mistaken. I've had extensive talks with not only Brian Kelly but different people that adds money to the collective, and it's been an ongoing thing with them trying to get on the level of Texas, Oregon, University of Florida, Ohio State. This has been an ongoing thing since NIL started, and for the life of me, people can't understand why LSU is not up there with the Texases of the world. You know, and it's mind-boggling when you think about it, especially when you talk about a prestigious university like LSU, who has so much rich history, has put out so many top NFL prospects, who has won 3 national championships in their history, and you just had 2 Heisman Trophy winners over the last 5 years. I mean, it's mind-boggling when you really think about it. And so, you know, and Brian Kelly's frustrated, and he should be. And I'm glad that he's putting it out, you know, on Front Street, that, you know, they have to get their NIL in order if they want to compete with the big dogs. There's no reason in the world that NIL should be the reason why LSU doesn't get a top 10 player.
I agree.
There's no reason in the world. And look, we could say what we want about that they couldn't recruit the top 5, top 10 receivers in the country in his last year's class, but part of it is because they couldn't compete with the NIL portion. You know, Decorum Moore, he's going to Oregon. Phil Knight dropped that bag, man, and they're making sure that he's well compensated. And LSU just got to get on board with it. But I can tell you for sure that's definitely not accurate, that they're third in the country in NIL with 20.1. No,
yeah, and
no,
look at the teams that they're above.
No,
Georgia,
they're not
A&M,
above. They're
Michigan,
not above. Look, they're not above Texas A&M. They're not above Florida.
Bama?
They're not above Alabama.
Right.
Like, no way.
And
No
then
way.
another thing I want to add to this. I mean, you were talking about Brian Kelly and just, you know, his reaction to it. And we opened the show with it, the call to action to the fans. And he had another statement on it today. He says, if LSU wants to be in this conversation, we have to realize where we're at. And this is going to go right into hand in hand to what G was saying. You're not up there at the top with the Texas, the Oregon, the Ohio
Mm-mm.
States, the premier programs that are getting the recruits. Matter of fact, some of those programs are getting recruits from you. You're not in a situation yet where you can kick your feet up, relax, and think that you're at the top. I mean, look, LSU brand wise, I think is significant. I think that they're big, but there's a couple of pieces that they're going to have to add if they want to be very competitive and get guys like Bryce Underwood, Corey and Moore. I mean, look, you're moving. You're getting the DJ Pickett's. You're getting the pieces. You're getting some good ones. It's not saying you're not going to get any, but to be the number one, to be the top three, whatever, to finish the job on the class that we thought we had, that's the missing piece. It's the clear cut missing piece.
Yeah, and I believe that if LSU doesn't get this taken care of and they don't start being able to utilize all of their resources in the state, you can see Brian Kelly not fulfilling that 10-year contract because he didn't come down here to be the middle of the pack in the SEC and not be in a 12-team playoff and be playing in these insignificant bowl games. He came down here to be at the top of the SEC, get in the 12-team playoff, and have an opportunity to win a championship. That's what he came here for. And he cannot fulfill it if he doesn't have the resources.
Right.
And if they don't get, I believe this could possibly be Brian Kelly's last season, the 2025, 2026 year, if they don't get this NIL in order. He's not going to keep going through this, and I don't blame him.
Right. It's a lot of headache. You've seen a lot of top coaches drop out. I mean, really two of the best coaches in Saban and Harbaugh through the last 3 seasons made their exits, and I'm sure they're not going to be some of the last coaches. Transfer portal has been crazy. Real quick before we hop out of the segment, I want to talk about two more transfer portal athletes. One being Bear Alexander entered the portal. I got overzealous. I was like, hey, LSU, throw something at him. Obviously, it didn't work out that way. His top three are Oregon, Penn State, and SMU. I thought that was very interesting. I feel like, I mean, he's got to go to Oregon, right? But is SMU really a player in the recruiting world like that? I know they got some good, financial backing, but how's that situation going? Have you've been keeping track with Bear Alexander?
I mean, when you got a team that's in the 12-team playoff, people are going to be a prisoner of the moment.
Right.
Will SMU be able to sustain playing at that level and getting into the playoff year in and year out? That remains to be seen. But that's what you're going to see, man. Anybody in that 12-team playoff are going to have a lot of people that wants to be a part of it. Winning cures everything, and like you say, they do have a lot of good backing at SMU. So I'm not surprised that Barry Alexander is considering SMU as one of his teams to be able to transfer to.
And lastly, Walker Howard returning home, going from SEC, coming down to the SBC, ULL. What's your reaction to that? And at first, it was an interesting spin, but I think it's going to make more and more sense as time goes, and he could have a nice role there. I'm wondering though. My thing is he going to take this opportunity and build it and use it as a bridge to another moment at another school, or is this going to be his school?
I'm excited to see Walker Howard finally get an opportunity to be a starting quarterback. Uh, I was very, very. I don't want to use the word upset. I guess I would say disappointed that it didn't work out at LSU because I thought he was going to be the next one up after Joe Burrow. I really, really, really believed that. And then when he went to Ole Miss, and then I saw him as a third string quarterback his first year there. This year, I think he got to second string behind Jackson Dart. And so I think him and his dad, Jamie Howard, just came to the realization of, look, we're going to go somewhere where we know it ain't going to be no politics involved. Go back home, to a UL program that's been winning since Billy Napier got there 5 years ago. They just won the Sun Belt this year. They didn't win a championship, but they won the regular season Sun Belt. And so I could see him going there and flourishing with not too much pressure. Coach Daz has done a great job in the recruiting. Some really good players that probably too good to go to UL. And so I think I could see Walker Howard going there and having a really, really good year. Could he possibly leave after a year and go to a bigger school? We'll see. But I'm just anxious to see him go there and show the world how good he is, because I think Walker Howard is an NFL caliber quarterback. I really do. Far as arm talent, far as mobility, height and size, I really think he's good enough to be an NFL quarterback. Now, I know it takes a lot more than that to get to that level. And I've heard some rumblings that he had trouble processing and learning the playbook to the level that Lane Kiffin wanted him to. And so, I anticipate that UL is going to do a great job of taking their time with Walker Howard and making sure that he understands the playbook and making sure that they give him the necessary resources and coaching to get him to be the starting quarterback, because he's not coming there to sit the bench. He's coming there to be the
Nope.
starter. And
He's coming to
I
be the
can't
guy.
and I can't wait to see him put that talent on display.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be a good opportunity for sure. Bowl game wise for LSU, let's switch gears a little bit. We had some announcements. Braden Swinson announced that he's going to play in the game. That was pretty big. He might be able to influence some of his teammates around him. Garrett Dellinger, TBD. That injury's kind of not necessarily lingering, but I just don't know if that's going to be worth it. He's got a decision looming as well. I wanted to add one more note about the bowl game. We're talking about the transfer portal or any other LSU players going to join. I feel like the portal is going to jump really after the bowl game. I feel like you might enter a dead period, but after the bowl game, you might see your last couple of people trickle out. And then after that, I feel like you're pretty much done because, the bowl game, people are kind of waiting for opportunities. People are waiting to see, like you were saying, with potential with Pimpton on how he was going to be used. Is that going to be the last little drop off? Are you expecting something crazy? Because I feel like a lot of young people are going to be able to get opportunities. I mean, you're going to see a lot of maybe even Colin Hurley. Obviously, all the defensive line talent. You got a lot of offensive pieces that you could throw out there. How do you gauge that situation? Because I feel like I said, most times after this, early portal window opens like it did at the beginning of the week, it kind of fizzles out, and then the next time you really see a spike is when that bowl game's done and you've clocked out your final game for that school.
From the coaches I've talked to, a lot of them are not making a whole lot of moves in the portal right now because they're waiting till this playoff is over. Because you're going to see a lot of kids jumping that portal after their team is eliminated from that 12-team playoff, and a lot of the bigger schools, that's what they're waiting on. They waiting on them big fish in those programs to get in that portal and try to see if they can get some of those guys services. So I really think that LSU is going to really do a lot of damage in the portal once the 12-team playoff is done.
Just gotta wait for them big fish, like you say. You gotta wait for that spawn. I'd be excited, and so I was thinking from a standpoint of just losing, but you're talking about gaining. You're talking about it's not even just your school. You got an opportunity. You're seizing the moment. This isn't even LSU's final departures, but the arrivals. The arrivals have yet to come. I like it. It's optimistic. I feel like especially because you got a couple of key positions left. Got a couple left. You could obviously address some of them here this weekend, but I mean. Do you think that there's any more positions that have kind of jumped into LSU's need besides?
No, just like we talked about on the last episode, man. I think they definitely need to go get another quarterback. With Ricky Collins leaving, I know we talked about Colin Hurley, and we're excited about his future, but I still think you need to go get a veteran quarterback to be in that room with Colin Hurley and Nussmeier.
Just in case.
Yeah. And they must go they have to go get an edge rusher. I think they need to go get two edge rushers, actually. And the safety position, I know they got the kid from Jacksonville State coming on a visit this weekend. I think they need to make sure they go get at least two safeties in the portal as well. So if they can do that, man, and capitalize on with those three positions I named, I think they'll be all right. Because they got a lot of good players coming back next year.
Yep. It's that return in production. That's kind of what Brian Kelly wanted when he came over here. Didn't want to, immediately jump into people that were coming in and out. He tried to slowly grow his pieces and slowly develop his guys. And I think this year you could potentially see the fruits of the labor. Let's go to the chat real quick before we move out of this transfer portal segment. Maurice is talking about Keelan Moses, and he was saying that the offer he got from A&M dwarfed LSU's, and I'm not surprised. That Texas money is different, bro. And then we got Bo in the chat asking about SMU and just that recruiting cycle. I don't know too much about what SMU's got going on, but I just know that SMU does have a very extensive alumni network. That's a pretty expensive school.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to the scheduling talk, right? Let's put this graphic up here. It's been a talk of really all of college football lately with the new college football playoff bracket being finalized. You even got Nick Saban chiming in on it and wondering if it's worth teams scheduling tough games. Now, hear me out. I mean, I'm not saying just cakewalks for everybody, cupcake schedules, but what I'm saying is let's take a tough SEC team, for instance, like LSU. What's the point of a Florida State, USC, Clemson season opener? What's the point of that if you're already going to have your cut your teeth games in the middle of your schedule? And I'm not saying there's no value in seeing what your team is made of up front. What I am saying is you're not getting rewarded for it anymore. That's kind of what Nick Saban was talking about. There's no real benefit at this point, at least from the college football playoffs format, to being the number one strength of schedule. If you look at a couple of these notes, Georgia's number one. The only other team in the top 20 besides them, SEC runner-up Texas, they're number 20. The next best, 28, 29, Tennessee, and Ohio State. So keep this in mind. The top three strength of schedules in this playoffs, all SEC teams. I feel like, you got two questions here that you can ask. One, is LSU, should they sweeten these schedules? Like, are they doing the wrong thing by scheduling these tough games like a Clemson through the next 2 years? I mean, hell, Clemson's a playoff team, a conference champion, and now you're opening your season against them. Is it too late to change, or would you even want to change? What's your thought on this?
I mean, obviously, SMU got in, and their strength of schedule was nowhere near what Alabama played. So if I'm a SEC team, I'm not scheduling tough games in my non-conference schedule. I'm just not doing it because I know I got to go through a gauntlet every year in the SEC. Now, I'm not saying I'm gonna just schedule a bunch of SWAC and Southland conference teams, but I'm not scheduling no top 25 matchups in my non-conference schedule because I'm gonna face about 4 to 5 top 25 teams in my conference year in and year out. It just doesn't make sense. And what Bama not getting in, that clearly lets you know that strength of schedule doesn't matter.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to have to adjust this format already. You're hearing all kind of rumblings. You're hearing, oh, we might do 14 teams. Oh, we might change the oil bids. I don't know how you address it. I don't know how you change it. I feel like this is such a confusing situation. But I mean, do you have any type of like options? Any type of things you're thinking of? Any tweaks you'd make?
I mean, they should use the same format as basketball. I mean, I know basketball they for the tournament is 64, but they should use the same criteria. If you win your conference, you automatically in. Not every conference. I'm talking about Power 5 conferences. And then after that, if you want, you call them at-large teams. That the teams that didn't win their conference, well, who has the best strength of schedule? Who, and then you go off the eye test too, and you mix that criteria, man. That's how you come up with your teams for your playoff, man. And I think if they would have done that, Alabama would have been in. Because Alabama, their win against Georgia, I know they had 3 losses, but that win against Georgia, and that win on the road to LSU, and that win against Missouri, and I think there's one more I'm forgetting about. I feel like that superseded anything that SMU did this year. SMU had 2 ranked wins against Louisville and
maybe like a Duke. Is like that was some of their toughest games.
I forgot who the second team was, but that's not equivalent to the win to the ranked wins that Alabama had. It's just not. And then they lost it. If they would have beat Clemson in the ACC championship, I probably wouldn't be saying what I'm saying right now. So if I'm a SEC school, I am definitely changing my non-conference schedule.
And for the graphic right here, we got highlighted the strength of schedule column. And if you look, Alabama at 18th, they would have been the second highest strength of schedule. LSU has the 10th highest strength of schedule. Thought that was interesting. Clemson, 35th, being conference champions. Obviously, Oregon, number 1 team, 34th. Something to note here. I'm not saying schedule cupcake games, but I just don't know. I don't know if this Clemson matchup is really going to pay dividends like we were initially expecting. And it might be too late, but if you could change, I'd go ahead and change. I'd go ahead and change. Let's right this wrong of season openers. I mean, geez, I would like to start 1-0. I'd like to have a good little moment. Let's move in real quick. Shout out Happy Dad before we talk about our NFL leaders. You know the drill with Happy Dad, gluten-free, low in sugar, no artificial flavors, and you know where to get them. Your favorite grocery stores, Walmart, Rouse's, Albertsons, shopping, go down to the liquor aisle, grab yourself a case, the teas, the hard seltzers, or go to their website. We got a link in the description for you. You can use code Verdant15 at checkout for 15% off. They got all kind of merchandise. They're going to have some holiday sales coming up. Get it before it's gone. Let's move into these NFL leaders real quick. All right, so this one, I'm not going to try to mislead y'all. I'm not going to try to put y'all in a situation where I'm making it seem like LSU is the best college in terms of NFL development, because this graphic does kind of make it seem like that. Passing yards, passing touchdowns, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. Those leaders all went to LSU. It's not really surprising. Everyone could probably guess who they are. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Burrow's number one in yards, touchdowns, and completions. Jamar's number one in yards, touchdowns, and receptions. Justin Jefferson, number two in yards, I might add. Here's something I want to talk about. So it's no secret that LSU and their brand and just the players that they push into the league eventually develop into stars, whether it be Jamar, Justin, Malik, Brian, Odell. I can go on and on and on and on. I was looking at the recruiting cycle. Out of the top 31 wide receivers in this class, 0 signed with LSU. Their highest was number 32, Teron Francis from Edna Carr. Mr. Manchild, we talked about him. I think he's going to be a good prospect. But it's shocking to me, right? Top 30, they've seen the trajectory. They see that it's the potential wide receiver you. And if it ain't, it's top 2. I think it is. But still, regardless, what's happening? Is it just an NIL situation? Is this going to get eventually changed? Because like Brian Kelly's main point was, we're developmental you. We're the situation, or we're the school that's going to put you in the situation. It's going to help you develop and be the best you. But now, like, is that even resonating with people? Is that even that more valuable? It seems like it's something they're bringing to the table, but are they going to have to tweak this a little bit? And why, out of the top 31 wideouts, none of them said, I'll try it out?
I can tell you right now, Scott Woodward is very, very disappointed about that. When you start talking about all the top receivers that was putting out their list, none of them had LSU in the top 3. That's concerning. That's concerning. And NIL is a big part of that. It's a big part of it, man. You know, these kids, they're not thinking about the grand scheme of things. They're not thinking about 4 or 5 years down the road on how playing at a school like LSU can benefit you when you get to the NFL and preparing yourself to get to the league. They're thinking about right now. They're thinking about taking care of their parents. They're thinking about driving the nicest car. They're thinking about putting the jewelry on and having the swag and being able to wear all the designer. That's on their mind. We live in a trendy world. And so that's why it's super, super important for LSU to be able to catch up to the Texases, the Floridas, and the Oregons of the world. Because when you're dealing with these type of programs that can lay out a blank check for these top receivers, and receivers is what's driving the NFL right now. That's why you see Justin Jefferson getting $30 million a year. Now you're about to see Jamar Chase probably up the ante and get close to $40 million a year, especially when he get that triple crown. And after the performance he did on Monday Night Football against the Cowboys with the walk-off touchdown, 188 yards, 2 tutties on 14 receptions. I mean, he's probably backing the Brinks truck up right now. He's backing it up right now to Miss Katie, the owner for the Bengals. I know that's what he's doing. And when you talk about that, kids are just not thinking about the big picture, man. And it's sad. But that's why we got to get more parents and people that's advising these kids, get them more educated and informing them to understand that, look, think about the long-term money. Don't think about the short-term. And I know that's easier said than done when you talk about kids that come from poverty, that probably ain't have nothing. But it's not to say that LSU can't compensate you. They probably just can't compensate you like the Texas of the world, like I just talked about. And you know, if I'm advising a kid, I'm always thinking about the grand scheme of things. And LSU has a known track record of developing wide receivers and them being able to flourish when they get to the next level. And so if people just got to start thinking about that. And I think some of these top receivers in the country, they're going to regret not coming to LSU.
I think so too. I mean, I think you can see a lot of these. It'll be interesting. Let's look back, 2 years from now and see how many of them entered the portal or how many of them didn't, get into that spot that they inevitably thought that they would. Lastly, before we get out of here, I want to talk about the potential new North Carolina head coach. Now, it's not exactly finalized yet, but Inside Carolina has reported on Twitter that they are closing in on a deal to hire Bill Belichick. I want to pick your brain real quick. I think it's going to be an interesting transition, right? I mean, he's obviously a great coach. He's obviously a great, leader, right? But how do you take that system that I'm not inside on the NFL, but I did watch the transition from him from the Patriots to being a free agent coach, and obviously they kind of got him out of that, and no NFL team really like it showed major interest. There's about two other teams, Falcons, Chargers. I'm not saying Bill Belichick's system might not work in college, but there's obviously something that people aren't grasping at this point. Maybe the system might be out of touch. Is he going to have to rekindle it? Is Bill Belichick, in your opinion, going to be able to be a successful head coach, or is it going to be too tough of a switch from pros to the NCAA and the NIL?
I think Bill Belichick is going to have some pros and some cons. One of the pros, he's going to the ACC. You're not going to the SEC. You're going to a conference where, you're going to compete with the Clemsons and the SMUs of the world. If Florida State can get back to what we know them to be, but you're not going to face a whole heap of juggernauts week in and week out. So I think that's going to play in his favor a little. Well, I think he's going to struggle at is the NIL portion. Being able to adapt to these kids making a whole lot of money at 18, 19, 20 years old. I think that's because Bill Belichick is so old school, and the way he runs his program, his program like a military. I know a couple guys that played for him with the Patriots, and they say it's a lot of things he doesn't allow in his program versus what other NFL teams did. So I don't know how he's going to adjust to that. I think the biggest thing for Bill Belichick, if he really wants to flourish at North Carolina and put that team on the map, he's going to have some assistant coaches that's relatable, some assistant coaches that's innovative and understands this generation of kids. And I think if he does that, he could possibly be all right because he's going to have them prepared. He's going to have a good scheme. He's going to run it the right way. But we're living in a different time, and he has to be able to adapt to this generation of kids, or it just won't work.
I agree. It's an interesting, news drop. I was thinking maybe he'd have like a smaller role in an NFL team, maybe a coordinator role, maybe something in the front office. But I did not have Bill Belichick, college football head coach, on my bingo card. I'll admit, I didn't think it would go in that direction. You see a lot of coaches getting out of college, and I didn't think you'd see one, especially one of the greatest, jump in right into the deep end. It's interesting. One more coaching topic. John Summerall, Tulane coach. Is that bidding war over? Is it done? Obviously, he signs the extension, and a lot of interviews coming out, a lot of clips of him talking about staying put in Tulane and all this stuff. But I feel like nothing is ever over in college football and football in general. I mean, you can date back to the old Nick Saban Miami Dolphins press conference. How many times I got to say it? I'm not going to be the head coach at Alabama. And then we all know how that transpired. I mean, there's obviously wiggle room, but how much? How much wiggle room? What's your reaction to that? And like I said, is that bidding war over?
From some sources that I'm close to and that was real familiar with what was going on with the whole John Summerall thing, had he beat Army in that championship game, I'm hearing he was going to leave Tulane. I think North Carolina and Kentucky couldn't validate hiring a head coach that didn't win his conference, especially when you're talking about a mid-major school. They couldn't validate it to the boosters and these important alumni that they're hiring a coach that didn't win his conference. They just couldn't validate it, and I think that was the reason why he didn't take the job at North Carolina and why Kentucky didn't fire what's the head coach name over there? Stoops. I'm sorry, Stoops. Why they didn't fire Stoops? Okay. And I think it's a blessing in disguise that they did lose that game against Army in the conference championship because Tulane gets him back, and they can keep building that program to what they wanted to be. And when he does decide to leave, whoever comes in after, it'll be what it needed to be to kind of just pick up where he left off. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, just coming to Tulane for 1 year, I don't think whoever would have took the job after him would have been able to sustain what he did just after 1 year. It would have been hard to replicate that, in my opinion. So I think it all worked out for Tulane and the fans.
What do you think about the Darian Mensah situation? How are they going to be able to kind of respond to that? I feel like that was such a big piece of Tulane's success this season. And I mean, I'm sure you expected it. Obviously, the NIL valuation was low. Obviously, it was only a third string. There's a whole different group of factors that you can add into this. But how do they address that? You think that's going to be a big issue, or are they going to be able to go and fix that rather quickly?
Yeah, man, it's unfortunate they lost Mensa, but that's the times we living in. He committed to Duke on yesterday, or was it this morning? But if I'm Tulane, I'm throwing the kitchen sink at Ricky Collins. Hometown kid, right there up the road from Baton Rouge. Know he didn't have a whole lot of experience at LSU, but you know the talent, and you know what kind of player he is, and he's similar to Mensa. Can move with his legs, very athletic, can has an NFL type arm. It's about 6'2". I would be trying to do everything I can to get him in my program. Now, will Ricky Collins consider going to Tulane? I don't know, because from what I'm hearing, Ricky Collins wants to stay in that Power 5 level. But if I'm him, I'm really in that conference if Ricky Collins decided to come to Tulane, because I think he's a great talent.
Yeah, and it'd be his job until he'd be ready to depart too. He wouldn't really have to compete. He wouldn't have to worry about too much. It'd be a pretty good fit. Well, that's about all I got time for today. All we plan for. G, you got anything you want to add before we run out of here?
Nah, man, I ain't got nothing, man. Not today.
Not today. Appreciate everybody for joining. Hit that like button on the way out. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss another upload. Follow my guy, G Sports, on Twitter at G_sports. And we're going to plug your doc.
Blue Chippers on Amazon Prime or Apple TV. Check it out, man. It's a really, really informative and educational documentary for people that's really passionate about high school sports and high school recruiting and the NIL portion and transfer portal in college.
It's perfect timing. Perfect timing. Right now, talking point. A lot of news, a lot of moves. We'll be here breaking it down for you as always. Once again, thank y'all for joining. Y'all have a great day.